Hello, everybody. Welcome. I just wanted to say a few words. This is always an important moment for the Master of HCI, for MITI, and also for the university. We have the Rector of the University of Madeira here with us. And I would like then to pass the word to the two directors of the program, Simone here, and then Laura, who came from Pittsburgh for this event. And wish all of you the best of luck. This is the first time in many years that I don't have any idea of what you're going to present, because it's the first year I didn't teach a project. So I'm glad to be here and try to learn. I also know that there are a lot of family coming here. Welcome to Madeira. And again, good luck to all of you. And I'm waiting to see the results. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Simone Ashby. I'm the program director currently, and I'll be replaced by Monica Camarão in the coming year, who's over here. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Laura, for making the journey all this distance from Pittsburgh, and to the rector. We're very happy to have you here. So I'm really happy to welcome you all to the final presentations for the MHCI Capstone capstones. This has been 32 weeks in the making, where each team has been working for a client, given a specific brief exactly about 1 year ago. We have the team Team Push, who's been working for the Polish telecom company Play. They'll be presenting their design, along with, I think I should now call them Team ENVISION, who's presenting the work that they've been doing for Rudio, which is run by Chris Csikszentmihalyi, who's our era chair here at MITI. So the MHCI program, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is a joint program run with Carnegie Mellon University. Laura is my counterpart on the Pittsburgh side. The CMU's MHCI program is one of the longest running, best reputed HCI, Masters in HCI programs in the world, and we're really delighted to have this partnership with them. It's been, I think, we're coming upon our 10-year anniversary. We're a little shy of that, but MITI was formed through this partnership with Carnegie Mellon to run this joint master's program here. And it's made for a really fun experience for everyone, a really enriching experience for the students, the local students here. And we're delighted with every new class that graduates to send them off into the world where they do all kinds of magic, as I'm sure the students you'll be hearing from today will prove. So without further ado, I will introduce you to the first team, Team ENVISION, and they're going to talk about the work that they've been developing over these 32 weeks plus for their client, Rudio. Thank you. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Laura, I forgot to give Laura the chance to just say a few words. I apologize.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say hi and quickly introduce myself. I'm Laura Belay. As Simone kindly mentioned, I'm from Pittsburgh, from Carnegie Mellon, where I run the Masters in HCI on the Pittsburgh side. And it's just really wonderful to be here and to see everyone. Again, it's been a while since I've seen people face to face. So it's really great to be here, and I'm really excited to see the work that we're being shown here today. And if at any point later this afternoon you want to stop by and say hello, I'd be delighted to meet you. But again, it's a wonderful program and such a great experience for our students, both here as well as back in Pittsburgh, to have the opportunity to have this cross-pollination between the two programs, and then for the students here to be able to diversify their experiences, both in the sense of doing their project work, but as well as being exposed to EU and Portugal and Madeira. So thank you.
Before we go on to the presentations, the director will give a few words.
First, I want to welcome all of you, dear Director of Human-Computer Interaction of Carnegie Mellon University, dear Director of Human-Computer Interaction of the University of Madeira, dear President of MIT, Professor Nunes, dear colleagues, dear students, ladies and gentlemen. As Rector of the University of Madeira, it is a great pleasure to me to be here and to be part of this opening ceremony of the Capstone Projects final presentation. This event marks the culmination of your effort and expertise acquired during your formation period and now turned into a real application. The time you are passing now in our societies poses us a lot of challenges. Therefore, it is extremely important that we keep focused on what is really important, and the acquisition of competencies is definitively one of the keys for those challenges. So my advice for you is, please keep your dreams, both professional and personal, and do work in order that they materialize. And be always open to increase your knowledge and competencies. Returning to this Capstone Projects presentation, I am very interested to watch and learn about your projects and about the technology that you have developed. This 2-minute madness presentation is definitively a very interesting way to do it, since it works both as an appetizer for the main course and as giving an idea of the projects for those like me that cannot assist to their full presentation. So, without further delay, and on behalf of the University of Madeira, I would like to congratulate all of you for reaching this stage of your training and wish everyone a happy Christmas and a great new year of 2016.
Good afternoon, everyone. Katie, the project manager of Team ENVISION, will be up first. But to introduce our project, I'm going to try to put you in the mindset of our users. But first, imagine you're living here in Europe or back in the United States, going to a great university and preparing to apply for your master's degree. You have a ton of help to get you there. You have a laptop to search through universities and programs. You have many friends who've gone back to school already that you can ask for advice to look over your applications. You have parents who are paying for you to visit campuses, maybe take the GRE once, twice, maybe more. And you can even download apps or podcasts on your smartphone to get expert advice on how to get into the top programs. Now imagine that you don't have any of that. You're the first person in your circle of friends and family to even attempt a graduate degree. You don't have the financial resources to afford tuition at a school internationally without a full scholarship. You have no time or computing resources to search through the massive amounts of information that the application and potential visa process requires, and few jobs at home in your area of interest. Our service, ENVISION, provides students in the developing world with a better chance of obtaining a professional degree abroad, despite these limited resources. All they need is what almost 1 billion people in the world already have, and that's WhatsApp. We'll show you how in just a few minutes. So thanks so much for coming, and we'll explain what we've made, tell you how we came up with the idea, and go through a live demo. Thank you.
Okay. Hi everyone, thank you for coming. I'm Leticia from Team Push, and our client is Play, which is a Polish telecom, and we're designing for families. So the challenge they gave to us, how to support families with a telecom. So we thought about and researched a lot about families, and we came to realize that it's hard to find things to do with a family when you have small children. It gets exhausting, it gets frustrating, things change, plans change, so it's hard. So we thought about creating a service that would help them, and they would find a better way to spend time together, because time together is what makes a family, and that's the most memorable part. And for now, I'll just show you our own memorable time together as a team, just for you to get a sense of how our process is throughout the whole year, and later on we will show you in full what the actual service is. I hope you guys enjoy it. It's just a little fun time. Okay. Thank you guys. We'll have a short break and then we'll be back with the other team to start presentations. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nalena Santiago, and we are Team WavesFM. This is our final capstone presentation. Today, we'll be talking our service that we designed, which is called ENVISION. Our client for our capstone project is Radio, a civic media project in Uganda. And their challenge to us was to find a way to connect the Ugandan diaspora to those back home. What we found was that much of the diaspora originally moved abroad for schooling, more specifically, graduate school. For many, this provides them with better job prospects abroad and back home. It's also an opportunity to experience a different culture from their own. But what we learned is that for every person that does go abroad for graduate school, there are many more that aspire to as well, but don't have the opportunity to do so because of lack of information. Small things that I take for granted about knowing how to be a competitive candidate are foreign and unknown to many applicants from developing countries. So when talking to international graduate students from Uganda, they were struggling with a few common things. Some of these included not knowing where to find funding. Many need scholarships to be able to go abroad, but don't know where to look or that it's feasible to get full funding. They also find the exams intimidating. For many, they've never had to prepare for standardized tests. We actually met students that only applied to programs that didn't require admissions tests, which severely limited their options. And they don't know which schools they're competitive candidates at. We spoke to several students who only applied to the highest ranked programs and ended up not getting in. They would have been much more competitive candidates at middle tier schools. As I originally stated, all of our initial research was based in Uganda. But as we started to speak to more students, we quickly realized that this wasn't a problem unique to just Ugandans, but to students all around the world in developing countries. So to support them, we designed ENVISION, a service that supports prospective international graduate students through the application and moving process. So let's learn a little bit more about it. Ever since I can remember, I've dreamed of working in public health. I've worked hard on my bachelor's degree and will be graduating at the top of my class. My parents want me to stay put and work for the family business. But I have other plans. I can get my master's in public health in London. I can see another part of the world and have much better job opportunities later. Without a computer at home, it's been hard to look at programs and complete an application. My neighbor told me her daughter is attending school in Manchester, so I decided to reach out to her, but never heard back. So I started using ENVISION. ENVISION gathered information about me through WhatsApp. And within 2 days, matched me with Diana. Diana's from my hometown. Best of all, she's already gone through this process.
Nice to meet you. I'm a second-year public health student at the London School of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene.
She understands that I have to go all the way to the UK Embassy in the capital to find test prep books. We chat about scholarships I've never heard of before. She makes me feel like I have an older sister looking out for me. With ENVISION, I can keep track of everything I have to do to complete my applications. These items are linked to weekly reminders which tell me things like my upcoming scholarship deadlines. I receive regular progress reports that motivate me to keep going. Without ENVISION, I would have limited myself to one school. In the end, I discovered 2 more with low application fees, and after months of work and plenty of guidance from Diana, I was accepted to UCL with full funding. I still talk with Diana from time to time. She walked me through the visa process, told me how to navigate the metro, and even helped me shop for my first winter coat. I have no idea what challenges lie ahead, but I feel better knowing that I have at least one person on my side. So how did we get here? We spent over 6 months doing research, synthesizing our findings, and then analyzing them. We talked to members of the diaspora who moved to graduate school to understand what challenges they had encountered, and we learned what they would have done differently. So based on this research, we came up with several parameters that guided our design. The first is that we needed a system that was universally accessible and easy to use in developing countries. The second was that students needed easy and quick access to the right information that better prepared them and didn't leave them doing hours of research on their own or feeling lost. And lastly, through our research, we found that those students that were successful in going to graduate school abroad had one of two things: financial resources or mentorship. We chose to focus on mentorship. Students needed access to mentors that had successfully gone through the application process and were doing their graduate studies abroad. So with this as our basis, we designed ENVISION, a service that works wholly inside of WhatsApp due to its prevalence in developing countries. Every person that we interviewed used WhatsApp on a daily basis, even hourly, to keep in touch with family and friends, and many referred to it as their favorite app. We considered building the service as a web portal or a standalone app, but found that it would be less accessible. So now I'll be taking us through how the ENVISION service actually works. So in ENVISION, we have the prospective international student from a developing country who needs some guidance and support through the application and moving process. He gets matched with a mentor who shares similar qualities as him. This can be being from the same home country or having an interest in the same field of study. And we have Unibot, a personal assistant that provides the mentor with the curated information and the tools the prospective student needs. Because of the limited UX capabilities we have using WhatsApp, the student communicates with Bot through commands. The prospective student also maintains 2 separate conversations within WhatsApp with each. So I'm going to guide us through the overall process from the perspective of our mentee, and his name is Herbert. So Herbert is a very motivated, capable young man who has overcome a lot of obstacles to finish his undergraduate studies. He decides to use ENVISION to aid him through the graduate application process. So Herbert joins the service by adding Unibot to his contacts on WhatsApp, and Unibot asks him about his background. They go through a tutorial about how the system works. And then he gets matched with a mentor, Onis, who is a current international graduate student. So with Onis, they start a conversation on WhatsApp, and they discuss different schools that he can apply to. And with Unibot, he can start a checklist and keep track of his progress throughout the process. Herbert is looking for more information about the GRE, and he actually gets immediate information from Unibot. And then with Onis, he gets help on his statement of motivation. So after a lot of hard work and guidance, he submits all of his applications, and soon thereafter, he receives notification that he's been accepted to several schools. So to get prepared from his move abroad, Unibot helps him through the visa process, and Onis gives him suggestions on where to find housing. Much to his excitement, a couple of months later, Herbert moves abroad for graduate school, and Unibot even helps him with helpful tips about his new city, like how to navigate the metro. So that was how the general service works. Now let's delve a little bit deeper into our friendly Unibot. Unibot guides the mentee through the initial onboarding process, and also makes the mentor match, and provides more resources and tools. So let's understand how Bot works in the larger ecosystem. Here we have the ENVISION platform. The mentee opens WhatsApp on his phone and adds Bot, and Bot communicates with our server, which in turn communicates with our website portal. The mentor joins through his phone or through the website portal. So because the system has to work all entirely inside of a WhatsApp chat window, to speak to Bot, you must use commands. The most important thing to remember is that to execute a command, you have to use a slash in front. So for example, here Herbert is using the command /help. So using the command /help, Herbert can access the 3 core features that Bot provides, which are the info bank, the checklist, and status updates. I'll now be going over these 3 in more detail. So in the info bank, the mentee can find trustworthy information and expert tips on what he's looking for. For example, he can learn the best strategies on how to request a recommendation or how to open a bank account in their new home. And all of this information is curated by our mentors. We heard that people spend a lot of time trying to find the correct information, so we want to reduce the amount of hours they spend Googling. So So let's go through an example. Herbert's looking for more funding opportunities in the UK. He goes to the conversation with Unibot in WhatsApp and writes /infobank. Remember that you always have to use the slash to be able to execute a command. So bot responds with 6 categories he can choose from. So because he's looking for funding opportunities, Herbert types /explore funding, and bot provides him with several options of countries where he can explore funding. Herbert responds with /United Kingdom, and bot gives him the information he's needing, with several scholarship options. So the checklist helps students to stay on top of their upcoming deadlines. One thing we heard was that it was a challenge to get everything done early. So they can prioritize everything that needs to be done. They can easily add a task, mark it as complete, or review everything they have completed. So Herbert types /checklist, and he sees his current task on his checklist. And he actually needs to add a task, so he writes /add space, and then the task, and he gets a confirmation that he successfully added that task. So the status update keeps track of the progress in general and keeps through the various stages and motivates the student to get to the end. The status goes through these 6 stages. They've chosen their programs, they've started their applications, they've submitted their applications, they have received the decisions, they have filed for a visa, and they've made the final preparations for their move. And so to recap, these are the 3 core features we covered: the infobank, the checklist, and the status. So now I'm going to pass it to Jen, who will take you through the mentor's role.
So we learned about this willingness to help incoming students prevalent amongst nearly all the diasporans we had spoken from Uganda. They were very personally affected by the process themselves, and we had sort of listened in with a lot of empathy about their situations of regret and frustration. So while this service personally resonated with them, and while they were willing to sign up and act as a mentor themselves, we did hear 2 recurring things. Firstly, they are completely uninterested in micromanaging people through the process. They don't want to be hovering over their shoulders the whole time. They have very busy lives themselves, working 1, sometimes 2 jobs, and it's really just not in anyone's interest to have someone follow up with you all the time. Secondly, we heard a request for a more formal channel. So a lot of these diasporans we had spoken to at various conferences showed us on their phone in their own WhatsApp conversations about people getting in touch about, so how can I move to the US? Or like, how much money do I need for the visa? How much, what do I need for this or that? And they felt like this service would be beneficial because they could always redirect someone to it and find someone better suited to answer their own questions. Secondly, something we heard about when we were floating this idea amongst a number of people was, how are we going to prevent scammers? So I don't want to be contacted by people just asking for money or asking for tips for other things that are unrelated. So by having a more formal channel like this, we can help to caution against those things. So we kept these in mind as we designed ENVISION, and it's pretty simple to sign up. Pretty much you're a current or you're a recent graduate student, and you can either sign up through WhatsApp, just like the mentee, or you can go online, where you take the same form, the same type of quiz that's going to match you with your mentee, and then you go through a related tutorial where you're going to be told about program expectations, best tips and tricks and practices, and all the features such as the checklist and how to operate those and how they work. So until they're getting matched, they just sit tight, hang out a bit, and record a voice memo that will be a really nice sort of warm, welcoming introduction when they are matched with their mentee. So we decided to match our mentors and mentees together based off of 3 criteria. The first, because of the similar background and having that empathy for all those sort of roadblocks that might be encountered along the way, is the home country. So that would be Uganda. Secondly, it would be the degree. So if I'm interested in a Master's of Public Health, I would be matched with a person who is currently pursuing a Master's in Public Health from Uganda. Then lastly, if the applicant has that degree of specificity at that point, a Master's of Public Health at the London School of Hygiene. So those were our 3 criteria. So that's what we had in mind as we started to devise one of our first user tests this fall to see if indeed that was the best way to match people. So we simulated a program of our own with the incoming class. Next year there's going to be 16 new applicants or 16 new students in the program. So we tested a few different ways for how to match them and what would create sort of the best mentor-mentee relationship. And among other things, we just really wanted to understand, what is life like as a mentor? So we had 12 participants sign up, and as mentors, we split them up into 2 groups, one passive group and one active group. With the passive, it's really on the own student's initiative to reach out to your mentor and to be proactive about, hey, I need to know this, or you need to help me with that. But with the active group, we're providing suggested topics every couple of weeks or so, just in case the conversation goes flat, just to help move it along, and keep up engagement. And like I said, experimented with a couple ways of matching people. So among the things we found was that mentees often underestimate the amount of work they have when they know they have months and months in front of them. So with hindsight, sort of as current students in the program, we understand how much preparation is necessary to register for classes, to think ahead, think about all the things we need to move. But when you're sort of stuck in the throes of sort of the semester, it can be hard to remember all those things. So mentors really have that benefit of hindsight. Secondly, we had heard, much to our sort of pleasure, I got information I couldn't have gotten through Google. So we learned that a number of mentees really did value this type of inside information that wasn't easily searchable or accessible everywhere. Thirdly, we found that mentors often match the pace and the frequency of the response of the ones that the mentees put forward. So if some mentees take longer, mentors will take longer in turn. So we kept that in mind. And then lastly, man, if it weren't for those suggested topics. So if it weren't for those topics, some mentors found sort of the conversation going completely flat. So we had heard from a couple of them that these were really beneficial. So among these insights, we really took some more time to think about how we could create a more structured mentor experience, one in which they wouldn't be sort of cast off on their own with this new mentee, but one that would be able to sort of check in with them as they develop their relationship. So another thing we wanted to understand clearly was how well can people use Unibot? As Nalena's mentioned a couple of times now, you have to speak with him using a very specific language, and that is using the / command in front of everything, or the specific commands. So this is the basis of our entire system, but since it's a pretty foreign concept to most, I assume it's a pretty foreign concept to most of you in this room, we decided to take our prototype to London and to test it with a group of current current graduate students from both Africa and Latin America, and see, can they understand the point of these tasks? Can they execute them? And overall, was the experience pretty pleasant and delightful. So we had 7 participants in which we moderated a study with them, and we had them complete a series of tasks, taking about half an hour to see how it went. So here you'll see a couple of people trying to use ENVISION for the first time. The way that it's structured, right, is you're first submitting all your answers to this form in order to make them match. And you get a little bit of practice here, just reading and answering in line. And then as soon as you're done with the quiz, the form type process, you begin the tutorial. And the tutorial exposes you to more commands in the process, and it has you sort of practice things in turn, just to get more used to reading and following up with it. And those are a number of the commands that you can see. So for some people, they caught on really quickly, and for others, they struggled a little bit more. In this instance, you can clearly see that the / is missing, so the system is not going to be able to respond. And then in a second case, someone tries to query the system first by using \help incorrectly, and then secondly by making up whatever made sense to them, which is a totally reasonable thing to do. But again, our system isn't really built this way. It hasn't been built for search just yet. So among these things, we really took careful note so we could figure out how to better refine the system as a result. So one of the things we noticed, right, these commands being unfamiliar, was not everyone realized that they had to use the slash. So as a result, we really emphasized this, brought this up to about the first thing we communicated when they were exposed to the system. And we built in a couple of safeguard features like an autofill. So if you type in the incorrect one, it says, oh, did you mean this? Things like that, to be a bit more kind. Expected conventions. So we had heard from a couple people, can't you just like build in a button and put it in the top right corner, and can't I just click on that button and it'll tell me everything I need to do? It's like, well, we wish we could have, but we're building it within WhatsApp and it has certain constraints itself. So we had built this kind of shortcut hotkey, that's the \help, but not everybody remembered that, so it was important for us also to emphasize that as well, move that earlier up in the process. Thirdly, the way that the form and the tutorial were written, we were using a bit of American and or British English, and sometimes we'd hear things like, oh, well, what's GPA or what's class of award? So in version 2.0, we realized that localization is very important. So depending on where you're applying from, be it Latin America or Africa or Asia, trying to use English or whatever the local language is in those terms that people would be able to understand and better communicate with the system. And finally, the way we took it to London is that we had people fill out the form in one conversation and complete the tutorial, and then initiate a second conversation with the mentor once the match has been made. Even though we told everyone that the bot was the same in the first and the second, we found a number of people who switched back to the first to kind of play around with it a bit more. So what that told us was that people didn't really understand that the same bot was prevalent throughout both, but maybe we should just keep it separate, which is what we did. So this way, the mentor isn't going to have a clogged sort of inbox with all these different commands that someone's been using or all the information they've been pulling up about scholarships or other resources. And the mentee is free to experiment and learn and kind of do what they need on their own. And of course, both would receive proper training in order to better use the system. So despite some of these challenges we saw, there was a lot of positive feedback. I'll read the quote for you. If someone is stressed out about something specific, then I would say, you know, there's a service in WhatsApp for that. This would be great for people who don't have someone in their immediate circle. It also helps to get a sense for the average amount of time each step in the process takes. So we had heard from a number of people how this really would have benefited them. They wouldn't have had to learn everything from scratch and entirely on their own. And so if anything, that gave us a bit more motivation to push a bit harder and to continue forward. So I'm now going to hand it off to Juan, who's going to show you a live demo.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Juan, and I'm gonna play the mentee role for the demo. So I'm doing my undergrad studies, and then now I'm trying to study abroad, doing a graduate degree abroad. So I heard about this service called ENVISION that is gonna do that, help me with this whole process and the application and the visa process. So I just decided to try it out. So here you can see I just add bot. It says ENVISION bot, and I got this really nice welcoming message. It says, my name is Unibot, and I'm going to match you with a mentor to help you to apply to graduate programs. So pretty much you're just saying hello, and then it's ordering me here to type on form. So I'm just gonna go ahead and type or either tap on the work form. So as you can see, it's saying we have 12 questions to ask you. So it's just going to ask some quick questions for me. So first, my name. I'm going to go ahead and type Juan Corzo. My gender, male. And if for some reason I just make some mistakes, this is going to happen. Invalid input, are you male or female? So yeah, let's go with male. Sweet, how old are you? I just turned 28, so 28. Where are you located? I'm going to go with Madeira, Portugal. Computer science. For the sake of the demo, I'm going to go a little quick here. CMU. So This is an interesting question because, as Jen said, it's asking me for my grade average because I said Portugal. If I was in the States, it's going to ask for the GPA. If I was in the UK, it's going to ask for this class award thing. So I'm going to go with 88. Now it's asking for the step I'm in this application process. So I'm going to go with the first step, which is I chose which programs to apply to. How do you plan to finance your education? I'm going to go with loans. And last question, what are your professional goals? Just going to go own a company. Everyone wants that. Okay. Thank you. I've stored your data. So pretty much that was it. He asked for some questions. He gathered my information, and then he's asking to continue with the tutorial. So I'm just going to go ahead and type on tutorial here. As you can see, you don't need to type when Body's talking to you. Usually, he's giving you suggestions, so you can just tap on the commands. So you got it. Now let's practice retrieving information. So tap on Explore Funding. Good job. And showing me a little bit of the information of Explore Funding. Then it's telling me how to use the Help menu. So just tap on Help here. And there we go. Here we have our menu with all the commands that we can use. The info bank, the status, the checklist, and there's the other to report. If for some reason you don't have a pleasant experience with Unibot or your mentor, you can report it. So then select the topic from the info bank to help. So I'm just going to go with Explore Funding again. It's showing me some options: United Kingdom, United States, Italy. I want to apply to the UK. Here, some information about it. So if I wanted to, let's say, now it's status. I want to see my status. Good job. And as you can see, first step, 17%. And now it's going to teach me how to use the list or the checklist. So you can see that I don't have any tasks in my checklist, and it's now telling me to add a task. So it works like this: add, and it's saying register for test. So I'm going to go ahead and type that: register for test. Your task was added to your checklist. Woohoo! Now let's check your checklist with the list command. There we go. We have it there. So if you want to complete that task, it's pretty easy. You go done and 1. Congratulations, you completed the task. So that was it. That was the tutorial. Bot explained me how to use the system. Now I'm familiar with the commands, and now I want to show you our backend. So here we have our service website where you can log in. And if you go here and you sign up, you sign in this case with an administrator account, you can see that we have a dashboard with some random information, but here we'll have later on very relevant statistics of the info. This is for the admins only. So you can check the mentees, and there we go. Here's Juan Corzo, Madeira, Portugal. We just did it. And we have other mentees ready to be matched with mentors. We also have some mentors here. So the system is going to go and check your data, and it's going to match you with the right mentor for you to continue the process and talk to him. So that was it. That was the demo. Let's continue with the presentation.
So as far as next steps go, we plan on continuing to build our small but growing pool of willing mentors that we've created since about January, and then to identify 10 willing prospective graduate students who wouldn't mind being part of the first pilot class of this. So people who are about to begin their application process, matching them with a mentor and sort of seeing them through the end of that. As a result, our findings, we plan to roll those into sort of the next version, develop the features some more, build out more of the information in the info bank for some other countries, and then after sort of the proof of concept, looking to have some initial conversations with admissions offices to see if there's any interest on their part before making ENVISION more widely available to students from many different countries around the world. And that's ENVISION, always at your side. So I wanted to thank my fabulous teammates for this really wild and fulfilling year. And of course, all of our educators at MITI, Carnegie Mellon, and the tens, almost hundreds of Ugandan diaspora members that we've contacted and harassed over this journey. So thank you so much for attending, and we're happy to take any questions.
No, no.
Great job. I mean, we made a lot of progress since the last time I jumped into the cloud. And I really like the concept very much. I was wondering, are there faults like this in WhatsApp? I use WhatsApp very rarely. I can't go to all of these messages. So I'm really ignorant about what to do with WhatsApp. So is this something you just invented, or is this something that exists already in WhatsApp?
What fun.
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, there are some bots out there. There's some problems with WhatsApp and bots. WhatsApp is not that bot friendly, but WhatsApp is actually okay with bots. It's just not okay with spammers and other companies making profit from the WhatsApp platform. So there are bots. They're not easy to find because usually there's this kind of like line in between. But yes, for example, there's a very famous one in India for sports, and you can subscribe to it, and you can like get scores, get the match information, and like a lot of information. So we work really close with WhatsApp, but also with another platform, also a messaging platform, to make sure that that wasn't an obstacle for us. But yeah, they exist.
Because I think what I like in your concept is that because of your target audience, and I think this product could be applied to any other domain, which is
Yep.
matching drivers.
We agree.
These people already use WhatsApp, and I think that's very clever in your project. And you know, there is this tendency to develop a new app, which of course cannot build on an existing network. So congratulations, it's very interesting, and I think there's a lot of potential to this already.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, also thank you to Chris, because at first we actually did want to do like the web portal and then just a little bit in WhatsApp, and Chris really pushed us to just think just wholly in WhatsApp, so this wouldn't have been possible without him pushing us to do that.
Our client, Chris.
Yeah, sorry. Rudia.
You touched a little bit on this in your presentation, particularly around spam, but I was wondering if there's any conversation with that participants, I imagine around quality and trustworthiness of the information that they're sharing after the work. Does that come up in discussion, and what do you envision?
Yeah, completely. So at least in an early version of the tutorial, we were very explicit about saying how mentors are going to be speaking from their own experiences and how, you know, they do need to do a little bit of research on their own. As far as building the info bank goes, we envisioned to make that really robust, initially at least starting out with some of our own information from all the conversations we've spoken with others to make sure it was highly vetted. And then from there on, giving some editing capabilities to more power users of the system who've also sort of proven their reliability, and having really a lot of that information accrue in there be just very highly vetted. So it's very important to us to make sure that what we put out there is very credible and has been tried and tested, because right, we're not interested in diluting sort of the system in any way.
How's the relationship going to evolve? What's the final step of the process?
I think after they arrive to the city, we kind of see if they want to continue, they could continue, the mentor and the mentee, but bot at least just goes to after arrival. So once he arrives, he can look up information, bank account, housing, etc., SIM card, but after that, we kind of see that the service is no longer needed.
But that they'll hopefully become a mentor.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And we also make it a point early on to tell the mentor that they're agreeing to a 3 or 4 month relationship, and not one that necessarily has to continue just forever until oblivion. So.
Is the system storing the information that people share, or it's just built with the conversation that needs to be started? Are you building some kind of knowledge base?
Yeah.
Let's see one.
that was the intention at the beginning. There are many problems in terms of privacy about it, so we decided, at least for now, just focus on storing the agreed information, the personal information, the beginning that they share. But all the conversations and all these interaction that is happening afterwards, we're not actually storing. But in the future, we could think about somehow learning from these conversations and interactions, yes.
Can I ask if you considered using Facebook instead of WhatsApp? Because Facebook, I think, is a more open platform for developers, and I think it's easier to have content or apps. If you consider it, why not?
It's valid observation. We also thought about using other platforms, and we designed the project in terms of, so the logic is there, but we can easily migrate to other platforms. We still haven't decided which one is going to be the final one. We did try in Telegram and WhatsApp, and they both worked perfectly. So we didn't try Facebook, but we considered it. But yeah, there won't be a problem to migrate, so it's just a little bit of learning process and decide which platform is going to be the final one.
The prevalence of WhatsApp compared to, I would say, like, it's much more prevalent to use WhatsApp in a developing country than it is to use Facebook, and people are just constantly checking the WhatsApp, so it's a lot more friendly and more accessible than Facebook, I feel.
Yeah, another thing we're observing too, or at least we've had a couple of early conversations about, is how some of the users take sort of Facebook a little bit less seriously than they can with some more formal conversations in WhatsApp. So just making sure that both parties who are signing up, who are involved, are, serious about investing some time into progressing. So whatever keeps people to stick with the engagement longer, I think we're more interested in.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Great. Hi, my name is Israel. I'm the UX lead for Team Push, and today I'll be presenting to you the final for our Capstone project. Before I go ahead and do that, I'd like to introduce to you the rest of my team. This is Leticia, our design lead, and Michael, our project manager and tech lead. Next, I'd like to introduce to you our client. Our client is called Play. They're a Polish telecom. They've been in the industry about 7 years. They have about 12 million subscribers, and they're the 4th largest telco in Poland. So Play has traditionally relied on targeting a younger market segment. So this is an example of some advertising. Traditionally, they're looking at young and tech-savvy market, basically young people. However, for this project, they came to us wanting to investigate families. In particular, they challenged us to rethink how a telco company like Play could really support and provide additional value to its family customers. So then the question for this project then became, how can Play support families? In response to this, we've developed sort of this statement that would guide our project, and that is, we seek to understand how families interact and communicate in order to design an engaging service that facilitates family relationships. In response to this, we developed what we're calling Sandbox. And Sandbox is a mobile application designed to facilitate time together as a family, exploration of local venues, and engagement with points of interest. To give you an idea of our vision for Sandbox, I'd like to now present to you our concept video. Okay, so how does Sandbox work? To explain to you how the system sort of helps families connect to these places, I'm going to introduce to you Eva. Eva's 8 years old. She likes music, art, and science. And when Eva first opens Sandbox, she then starts to customize an avatar. Now this avatar represents Eva in the world of Sandbox and sort of follows her wherever she goes. Next, Sandbox collects a number of Eva's interests. For example, in this case, Eva would tell Sandbox that she likes music, science, and art. And based on her preferences, Sandbox then assigns her a role. And in this case, Eva is an explorer. Her role is sort of will influence the types of activities that she completes in Sandbox. When she does this sort of onboarding process, she then sees a screen with a number of venues. And again, each one of these venues is based on her interests and preferences and the preferences of her family. The other thing to note here is that her family, the rest of her family members are also represented as avatars in this sort of world. And also, if Eva's mom or dad wants to add additional filter criteria, they can do that. Some additional controls over what venues would show up. So how does interaction work? So when Eva, for example, she wants to go to the zoo, when she gets to the zoo, Sandbox triggers an alert, and it would basically say there's a number of activities that Eva could complete. In this case, Eva decides that she wants to complete the colorful birds activity. In this case, Sandbox tells her to go to a number of different bird exhibits and to document what she sees there. So in this case, what's important to note here is that we're connecting families to places that they're interested in, but also providing sort of new ways of interacting with these places through using their device. So we've developed the following service model for Play. I'll just go over these briefly. Customers discover the app primarily through advertising with Play, and then they decide to opt in. They're oriented towards the service by installing the app and following the onboarding instructions. And primarily they're interacting with this service when they're going to venues, completing activities. And lastly, by extending and retaining rather, that's happening when they complete activities and then unlock additional activities. So they have reasons to go back to the same places in a sort of gamified model. And lastly, we believe that families, as they find value in the service, they'll begin to advocate by telling their friends and family about this. So now I'd like to pass it over to Michael, who's going to go over our research.
Hello. As Israel mentioned, I'm Michael Richardson, and I'll be discussing a little of our research and then walking you through the demo. So first off, we looked at the market, and we saw what it is that they're doing now. So we examined a number of telecom service offerings throughout the United States, Portugal, and Poland. And we did this because we wanted to have a good understanding of what kinds of things telecom companies are doing throughout the world. We noticed there's a variety of differences between different places, but there's also a lot of commonality. Secondly, we also looked at families and what it is that families are doing now to meet their needs. What are the concerns that families have, and what are the things that they're wanting to invest time, energy, and money in? Now we found, although there was some overlap where needs and offerings met, there was also a lot that was not. Inside of the overlap, we see things like communication and entertainment that are really well represented, with things like video streaming, internet radio, and of course, classic telephony services like SMS, voice, and video calling. However, we also saw things outside, like sharing memories and reminiscing, or tokens of affection and gift giving, or shared activities and time together that weren't well represented by what telecoms were offering. Now, in our research, we found among these, the most promising for us was to focus on helping families enjoy these shared activities together. So that leads us to our user research. So in our user research, we talked to a number of parents and children to get a good understanding of how it is that they make these decisions about activities, where it is they go, and how is it that they interact in the space when they're there. Now to begin, we spoke with a number of parents, mothers and fathers, and we asked them a variety of questions about the things that they did together, where it is they went, and how it is that they planned and executed these activities together. Our findings are typified by this quote from one father in Portugal saying, "Finding things to do is difficult. We spend a lot of time looking for things to do." And the interesting thing here is that there's two big findings here. One is that finding things to do or keeping things relevant and interesting and novel is difficult. And secondly, that parents are interested in investing a lot of their time and energy in making these a pleasant experience for their kids. Now, as mentioned, finding new and interesting places is difficult. Additionally, we found that parents really valued their child's autonomy and their interests, and that oftentimes the planning about where they went and what they did entirely circled around the interests and disposition of their children. Additionally, we found that parents themselves were interested in enjoying a sense of surprise and discovery as they engaged in these locations and did these activities with their families. As one mother in Portugal stated, "I like the idea of having to find things. Even without an application, we usually have to play a game like this anyways," showing that parents already are putting forth this time and energy and effort to make these places more interesting. Now, it wasn't enough just to talk to parents, but we also wanted to observe parents and children interacting in a space and engaging in activities to see what it is that they did and how it is they interacted with one another. As we did this prototyping session, you can see in this particular example we were using a paper prototype. So as the child interacted with this device, we would operate the screen, changing out what screens they saw in order to direct them throughout the activity. Now, interestingly enough, we found that children also value their autonomy. Children are very interested in having responsibility for their decisions about what they do and how they go throughout the space. We also found that they often are directing the activities when families are at a particular venue. Now, it wasn't enough just to look at activities. We realized these activities often happen in venues, in these places that offer interesting things. So we spent some time looking at those, and we found that these venues, they really depend on these compelling points of interest. These are what it is that makes these businesses work. So places like museums and art galleries, they depend on having something interesting to show families, and families go there because they want to have an interesting and engaging experience with their families. Now, some of these venues, as mentioned, are museums, art galleries, and so forth that have a number of exhibits, a number of individual pieces that they want to display, as shown here. There's also public spaces that have monuments and statues and so forth that also are very interesting and part of the local community and culture. So, in summary, we found that dedicated family time strengthens the relationship in the family, and our product consequently helps parents find places to go, supports the children as users, and engages families with points of interest so they can spend this time together as a family. I'd like to show you a quick demo and show you how it is that this works. Have a little art gallery back there. Surprise, surprise. It'll be just a moment as my phone connects to the screen. All right. So we'll take just a moment to launch Sandbox. Maybe 2 moments. That's probably true. All right. So now that Sandbox is loaded, so this is what families will first see as they interact with the app. Secondly, they'll go to this screen and they'll add their phone numbers, and this is so that each member of the family will be able to access the same account, the same information, and will be able to see the same record of places that they went together. In this case, we'll put in a made-up phone number. We'll add another one real quick. And we'll create a profile. Now in our case, we've got a little bit of an interesting family up here on stage. We've got myself, Michael, 26. I'll be a friend. Let's see, I'm wearing blue. Looks nice. Nice haircut. There we go. Select some preferences. And then I'm assigned a role. Now we've got a couple of other family members up here, so we'll go through that real quick. We've got Israel, 29. Sometimes he's slow. I think we're all that sometimes. We'll select some interests for him as well. And then, of course, Leticia. $22, right?
Yeah. Let's go with that.
We'll put you in orange. Sounds better. Change your hair. There we go. Very orange. It'll be a very special carrot. All right. We've got our family now. Now, before we get to the map, we'll have a quick tutorial explaining how it is we interact with the map. So we swipe the cards at the bottom to explore new places. You can select a place by tapping on the marker. That'll lead you to navigation. You can favorite places you want to visit. You can unlock activities by going to a particular location. And then you can rate and review the application, or rather the activity that you completed. All right. So first thing you see here is the current weather right now today. Partly cloudy, 21 degrees Celsius. Now, if we want to look other times, since we're often worried about planning as well, we can look at different days of the week, and we can see our results filtered by when it is that these places are open. So we can make sure that we're making plans to go somewhere when they're actually going to be open. As we can see here, the current weather forecast shows that Tuesday is going to be sunny. Sounds like a nice day. All right. There's also some filtering information as been mentioned earlier. So we can change how far away to look from a current location, as measured in kilometers. Then we can change how far away in terms of travel time, measured in minutes. Next, we can also choose which of the supporting locations we want to show. So places like ATMs and banks, public transit, parking, and restaurants. So send that away. Now let's look around a little. So we've got the Madeira Adventure Park up here. We've got the Jardin Tropical there. As you can see, there's a variety of places, and all these are pulled live from the database of venues. And we can look around and see what it is that we're most interested in. So, for example, there's the Cristiano Ronaldo Museum, very popular among the Madeirans, I hear. And anyone who's not American. As you can see here on the map, you can see some of the supplementary venues around it. You can see that there's a few bus stops. There's also 4 restaurants. And although this is a really weird review, it is a live review. I'm not really sure what they're asking. Now, there are other reviews as well. This one's particularly amusing. You're the best player in the world. You're Ronaldo. I'm your biggest fan. There's a few more in here with people's addresses asking Ronaldo to visit. It is a little awkward. You know, hero worship. That's how it goes. Since this is such a popular place, we can favorite it for later. Now, if we zoom in a little, you can see there's an art gallery at Colegio de Jesuitas, in Funchal. How about that? Now we've got an activity here. So, the Expressionist exhibit lost the paint for one of their most famous paintings. Find similar colors in other paintings in the exhibit to recover the lost paint. All right, find the color. Projector's not super great with this color. It's actually more of a greenish field. But we'll look around. Let's try yellow. Doesn't work. Let's try teal. Should work. I hope so. Depends on the lighting. If not, I have a backup of colored mugs. So we found the first color. Find the others. Now we've got yellow. Looks like we've got some yellow here. Two of three. All right. Now we've got the last color. Just to show it doesn't have to be the painting, you can use a mug. So I'm going to change the angle so I get better light. Oh, maybe. There we go. So I found each of the colors. And now to locate the painting. So, let's locate it. Line it up a little. And there we go. We found the Starry Night. Starry Night is by the Dutch post-impressionist painter Vincent van Gogh. It depicts a view from his asylum room window just before sunrise, sometime in June in 1889. So now our activity is complete. And now we have the chance to rate the activity. I thought that was reasonably fun. And that concludes our demo. Switch it. So again, that was Sandbox, a service for helping families find places to go and things to do together. Thank you all for being here. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, someone has to do it the first time, otherwise nobody will print it. So I was wondering how much of this is kind of accessing online data. So you showed reviews. Are you using?
So
Yeah.
Hello. So there's a variety of pieces coming in. The most prominent in our case is using the Google Places API. So it's a list of places curated by Google, represented by all the places they've captured with Google Maps. And it has a variety of pieces of information about those venues. So things like where they're located, pictures, reviews, and so forth. So all the photos that we saw on the little cards, those are pulled from Google Places. Also the reviews, the locations of all these places as well. So that's a big piece of it. There's also some additional information that we're pulling through the Google Places Details API that has extra information as well about these places. In addition, we're also pulling live weather data. So based on our current location, it's making calls to a weather service, updating us with current expected weather conditions for the next week. And then there's also some APIs that are available that we didn't get, that would be in the next version of the prototype, that it's called the distance matrix API, and it lets you query places by how far away they are, as measured by distance or by time. And that would play in really well with the filtering options that we had in mind. So everything you saw there with the maps, with the places, all of that was live data being pulled from Google's web services.
Okay, I'll just add to that. In our case, our client does not want to be a content creator, so initially to kick off the project, we'll be using public information, but ideally over time, the users themselves will create and generate feedback, and then the app would be a little bit smarter because then you would get information curated by children and the families, and it would be age appropriate to those people that are looking for it. But initially, yes, it makes completely sense to get as much information as we can out of what already is available.
Other questions?
Nalena?
Yes, Nalena.
How do you plan on getting these activities? Who's going to create these activities?
All right, I'll take that one. All right.
You
So
raise it?
there's some of these activities that we're going to be giving people based on the roles that they're assigned. That'll help us generate interesting places, or help us recognize what these points of interest are at venues and ways of interacting with them. Additionally, we'll be providing venues a dashboard, a way for them to curate and create these sorts of activity chains so that they can best communicate what it is that's unique about their particular exhibit and their points of interest. So again, as was mentioned by Leticia, our client really is not interested in becoming a content creator. So we built a system in mind, or with this in mind, so that local venues, we're relying on local venues to provide this information. And we really don't think this will be a big obstacle because, again, these venues, their line of business is bringing people there. So it's certainly in their best interest to have more advertising, more marketing, and more people aware of what it is they have to offer.
And also the public ones. The audience. Public.
Yes, related. How many activities do you service each family?
So in terms of how many activities, we were thinking somewhere reasonably small, so somewhere between like 3 and 5 activities or activity chains on each location. And each activity chain would be a relatively short thing. But the idea is that there would be a different set every time they go. So the idea is to get people to go interesting places and to do interesting things there, but to get them really to engage in that space. We really didn't want the app to become the focus of their time together, but rather one another.
And just to add to that, the community side, because we were talking about venues and how they would see profit and possibly a relationship with play, we also thought about the public spaces themselves, and those roles that we mentioned that each person would have would actually help matching and feeding more activities. By doing an activity, the person would actually be helping building the system with more activities to do. So we would just chunk the activity down in smaller tasks, and as the person does it, it would increase and then build a whole activity. And that would be ideal for public spaces that no venues have claimed. So we always generate more information, so you get new data, probably interesting data, and the idea is also to keep it fresh and different and not redundant and repetitive over time.
It's curious if you designed this with a specific age group in mind. You mentioned in your scenario 8-year-old. Did you learn from your users what the ideal range is? That's how you
So sort of. So our client initially, they gave us a requirement that we were focusing on children between 7 and 12. So that's the age group we've been working with and that we've been focusing on with the studies we've done, children that are at that age or near that age. So that's one of the big reasons. Another, we actually talked to some people that ran some, I don't know what to call it, an experience here in Madeira. They had a thing called, or an exhibit at the mall called Viagem ao Espaço, where they would take children through an exhibit of sorts. They'd put on spacesuits, they'd see a bunch of things, they'd go into a rocket. It was a very immersive experience. But we talked to the people that were running it, and they talked to us about kind of the problems they had. So they mentioned that kids that are younger than that lower limit, kids that are 6 down, oftentimes they don't do well when they're not immediately with their parents, and they're not that interested in seeing the things. Additionally, they said that the kids older than that range oftentimes were the hardest ones for them to manage because they felt like they'd already heard it all, they already knew everything, so they didn't really feel like following a directed path through the experience. So we feel that really this age group is ideal for what we're creating because they're young enough that they're still very curious about things, but they haven't quite gotten to the point that they're so independent that they don't want any guidance.
And a follow-up question to that, speaking with the children and families, did you get any feedback on what's the right frequency and duration for engaging with
So some of what we were doing, kind of the way we designed it, and especially with the filtering options that you saw before, I don't know if we pointed it out, but it was about 1 week in advance. So we were primarily considering this as sort of a weekend activity. When we talked to parents in how they plan their activities and in terms of frequency and things like this, a lot of them spent a lot of time planning for the weekends, especially with the older children. There's a lot of variation in scheduling and things like this. So in terms of engaging with the app, we thought it would be something that would happen probably like once over the weekend, 4 times a month. So that's kind of what we thought. Duration-wise, I think it really depends on the age of the children. But for each of these activities, I think we planned it within, it came out to what, like under an hour, right? Or for all the activities. For all of the activities at the venue.
But it also depends on the distance that you're at and where the activities could be leading you, so it's very contextually related.
Right. And it's not, you don't have to complete all of them when you're there. You can always like stop at 1 or 2, but we definitely planned it. We tried to limit it so it wouldn't just be, just go on forever, but also just enough to engage them for that period of time.
Another challenge was with that age range. Some kids are just trying to learn how to read and they're practicing their skills. Some are a little bit more advanced. So we have to think about activities that would be engaging and interactive without being too worthy and too intense. But even if that was the case in some of the testing, the parent would always help reading if they wanted to take over. It's just a moment in a family, like connection a little bit, helping out understanding things. And just to go back a little bit, our client also was trying to introduce cell phones to younger audiences. So they tested a lot on how kids would interact with phones and what type of interactions they would be having initially. And this would be a nice way to start having them familiar with using a phone in a family experience, not necessarily something completely foreign and distant, but to make it more friendly and less scary for the parents as well. Because it's mostly about the information on the phone, not necessarily the phone itself that they worry about.
And yeah, to that, they were also finding that in the Polish market, at least, Warsaw, a lot of their subscribers were younger. So within the family, they're seeing a lot of children with their own phones, and they're like part of a family plan. So that was one of the reasons why they led us to this, and that's why they wanted us to investigate it further.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, so once again, we want to thank both teams for their wonderful presentations and taking the time to share their projects with us today. Right now, we are actually going to go right across the garden into another space, and that is where they're going to be providing demos so you guys can come and test their product and see more hands-on exactly how it functions. So if you'll please follow me over there, we'll go get the demo session started. Thank you.